If it means righting an ancient wrong and unraveling the truth, will Wonder Woman be willing to butt heads with a goddess? Well, we'll find out in the pages of Absolute Wonder Woman Annual issue number 1. Meanwhile, over in the pages of Black Label, the Gotham City Sirens are ready to ride again. There's a killer on the loose, and maybe only Black Canary can help them crack the case. So, with that in mind, everyone, let's take a closer look at 2 wonderful books that hit comic shelves this week and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, so this brand new annual story actually takes place before what's currently going on in the main Absolute Wonder Woman title. It also takes place not too long after Wonder Woman's defeat of the Tetracide and her embracement as Gateway City's hero. You may remember that the only reason that the Princess of Hell was able to overcome such a terrifying creature was by transforming herself into an equally terrifying creature, in that case, Medusa. Here's the thing though, literally walking a mile in the famous Gorgon's shoes really ended up giving Diana a completely different view of Medusa, her suffering, and her very unfortunate lot in life. It's because of that Wonder Woman desperately wanted to try and right an old wrong, seek an audience with Athena, and hopefully try and find a way to end Medusa's thousands of years of suffering. Only here's the problem though, every time Wonder Woman tries to reach out to Athena, she ends up getting nothing but silence. Still though, Wonder Woman is tenacious, and in between all of her other superhero-ly duties continues to try and get Athena to pay attention to her, even when that includes doing a whole blood ritual thing. Because somehow, someway, it always comes back to blood rituals in this book, doesn't it? Eventually, the goddess of wisdom and handicrafts decides that she's had enough of all of this endless blowing up of her mythical phone, and just decides that she better zap Wonder Woman over to her realm so they can have a discussion about this whole Medusa matter. And hey, what is the story with Medusa? Again, if you know your Greek myths, there's a lot of different versions of the classic story. Was she raped by Poseidon? Did she lie with Poseidon in Athena's temple? If so, why was Athena so mad at this mortal woman and not at Poseidon? Also, why were her sisters also turned into Gorgons? Were they always Gorgons? Well, Diana actually has a pretty good answer for all of that. She says that what we call myth, she calls history, and just like any history, history is written by the winner. Now, give it thousands of years of distance between the original events and allow regular old mortal men to try and interpret the story for themselves, and that's why you end up with such an anachronism stew. Athena, too, also isn't exactly very helpful when it comes to trying to put an end to Medusa's suffering, even when Wonder Woman brings up how deeply unfair the punishment has been. You see, Athena never actually confirms or denies anything from the story. She merely says that Diana should not be taken in by the stories of man's world and the corruption of her story. And that while she very easily could have put an end to Medusa's suffering thousands of years ago, she never did, because doing so would be tantamount to admitting that she was wrong, and well, gods are incredibly egotistical. Even gods like this who are friendly to Diana, and well, I think you can see where the problem is. All I know for certain though is that this double-page spread here of Athena in her golden armor that looks more than a little similar to the armor that Wonder Woman herself dons in Kingdom Come is positively eye-meltingly gorgeous. Now, another dimension to all of this too is that Athena was one of Wonder Woman's godly teachers over on Hell Island. Together, the two would play chess in an attempt to try and teach a young Diana about strategy. Diana says she always loved chess because it was the kind of game where she never actually had to win and hurt anyone's feelings. Instead, she could always end up playing to an actual standstill and making her opponent yield. Athena beat young Diana every time and never understood the girl's obsession with seeking other types of victory outside complete and total defeat and dominance. Wonder Woman does offer Athena the opportunity to save face. Wonder Woman will go to Medusa, reverse her curse, and Athena herself will get to save face by not actually getting involved. All Wonder Woman asks for in exchange is a boon, one that she is willing to trade for, giving up all of her God-given talents in exchange for, which, man, actually that ends up making a really interesting precedent that Wonder Woman both has her own innate learned magical powers and the skills given to her by the Greek pantheon. I get the distinct feeling this is actually going to be very important to know once we circle back to what's going on in the main book. This also means that when it comes to finding the Gorgon's lair, Diana is basically just human. She climbs a massive rock face saying that she has no idea how it is that Bruce does this all the time. Oh, that's nice, she's still thinking of Batman after the crossover. Now, if you've ever seen a Ray Harryhausen swords and sandals epic before, I think you'll know exactly how the rest of the story is going to play out. but Wonder Woman has to traverse the Gorgon's lair with her eyes closed, making sure not to stare Medusa or her sisters directly in the eye lest she be turned to stone forever. You know, sometimes I like to actually record these parts of the videos with my eyes closed. I'm doing it right now, can't you see? Now, even though Diana gets knocked around by Medusa's sisters, deep down in her heart of hearts, she has to admit that there is something very sweet and wholesome about how this family stayed together despite all the horror that they were put through. And I mean, hey, it makes a lot of sense. This is a Wonder Woman who was born without the camaraderie and closeness of her own Amazon sisters. It's something she went into the world looking for, so understandably it's something that she would respect in others. Now, when Diana finally does end up coming face to face with Medusa, she's nothing like you might imagine. For one, she is absolutely massive, with entirely reptilian skin and one giant snake body for legs. It's really striking. Diana gets grabbed, and for a second there you might be thinking, well, this is curtains for our hero, but no, it turns out the boon that Wonder Woman asked for from Athena was the ability to survive the Gorgon's gaze. But not for any tactical or combat reason like you might be thinking, quite the opposite in fact. Diana only spent a short amount of time as Medusa, but in that time she realized how truly horrifying it must be to never look upon the face of another. And because of that, transversely, never actually truly be seen yourself. And yeah, wow, that does absolutely sound like a living hell. Wonder Woman wants Medusa to know that she is being seen, that she is being listened to, that what happened to her, whatever the reasons might be, were absolutely unjust, and that she has come here now to put right what once went wrong. You'll recall that one of Wonder Woman's powers given to her by her lasso sacrifice is the ability of transmutation, taught to her by her mother Circe, the master of turning one thing into another. Diana wants to use the lasso to return Medusa back to her original form. That is, assuming that she actually wants to do that. She has to be the one to make the choice, and she has to be willing to put it all into the actual transformation process. Medusa herself even says that Diana is taking a hell of a chance trusting her right now. How does she know that she won't willingly transform herself into an even bigger, more terrifying monster? But again, that's just how much Diana cares about restorative justice. That's just how much she cares about truth. And because of that, she's willing to bet it all on Medusa, and wouldn't you know it, but Diana's good heart steered her right once again. Medusa uses the power of the lasso to return herself to her original form, which in a fascinating twist might not actually be 100% human, but either way, she's absolutely ecstatic that this old wound now finally has a chance to heal, and even Medusa's sisters are happy as well. Wonder Woman's powers are ultimately returned to her, and she says in her internal monologue she now actually has a whole brand new appreciation for them, because hey, how difficult must it be to move through such a beautiful and cruel world and be so vulnerable. Perhaps the most surprising part of this outcome is that Athena herself is actually elated with the outcome. She says that she finally now understands what Diana meant as a child all those years ago playing chess, and that through her sheer goodness and tenacity, she ultimately did end up winning. She did force a god to yield, and yield she did. Now, from gods and monsters to the city streets, over in the pages of Sirens, Love Hurts, we're introduced to a young woman by the name of Julie. Unfortunately, her life is absolutely falling apart at the moment. She feels pathetic and invisible in an uncaring city that more often than not ends up crushing people underfoot. Worse still, her brand new psychiatrist doesn't really seem to care one way or another. Actually, no, wait, I take it back. The worst part is that while on her way to work later, while talking to her mother on the phone, she ends up becoming the victim of one of Gotham City's very many knife-wielding maniacs. Keep all this in mind because we will end up circling back to it later. From there, we transition on over to the wharf where Dinah Lance, aka Black Canary, ends up getting accosted by Selina Kyle the Catwoman. Selina, of course, walks in both worlds, sometimes a hero, sometimes a villain, depending on the situation, and today she has a very important proposition for Black Canary. She wants to know if she could ever possibly see herself joining up with the infamous Gotham City Sirens, a collection of anti-heroines who go out of their way to try and make the city streets a little safer, especially for young women who find themselves much too often targeted. Now, that's a lovely mission statement to be sure, but I can only assume if you're like me, you were a little distracted by how frickin' beautiful the character designs are right here. I mean, seriously, Babs Tarr ate and left no crumbs, as they say. Seriously, look how frickin' intricate all of these outfits are and all the little things that end up tying it all together. Like how Dinah has a Black Canary tattoo under her crop top and you can see it when she moves. Or how when Catwoman flips up her hair, it looks like she has little cat ears. And then there's Harley, and I mean, really, what can we say about Harley? This might be one of the most radical redesigns of the character outside the Birds of Prey movie. She's got chain earrings that look like the Supreme logo. She has pink hair instead of blonde. She's wearing a Guy Fieri flame shirt. But, oh yeah, the story. Yeah, understandably, Black Canary doesn't exactly get on with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy from the jump. She still sees them as supervillains, and they still see her as such a superhero that even her mom was a hero. Oh yeah, that's a little piece of continuity they don't like reminding us of in the main universe, but this is Black Label, so we can do some interesting remixing and remasters. Furthermore, Harley and Ivy are queer in the world of this story, and they live together, but they're not actually dating each other. Huh, how about that? In a very Sex in the City way, the conversation actually does ultimately end up turning to the subject of who everyone is seeing right now. The Sirens, of course, are all about being free and having a good time and leaving their options open, and because of that, they actually end up busting Dinah's chops for being in such a loving, committed relationship with Oliver Queen, who they dislike not just because he's a superhero, but also because he's a rich guy, and I mean, they're not wrong about that second part. We also learned that Green Arrow and Black Canary are engaged. He gave her a very nice multi-carat, conflict-free diamond not that long ago, and while Dinah definitely loves Ollie, at the same time, she's not exactly comfortable with such an extravagant gift, or the fact that Ollie would even think that she would be comfortable with such a gift. The Sirens don't exactly think they're making much progress with Black Canary, and when she steps away to take a call from her fiance, they decide now is the time to leave her with the bill, cause they gotta go sober up, suit up, and get ready for their next big night job, which is a daring heist on a mafia-affiliated nightclub, which just so happens to have a safe overflowing with dirty money. We can also see that the very extravagant art-forward focus of this piece also extends to the Sirens' costumes. Catwoman's isn't all that different, though she is rocking the revealed underarms, and I mean, I guess it makes sense if you're doing acrobatics in a skin-tight leather suit, you're gonna want to be able to breathe from somewhere. Poison Ivy's is the most reimagined. This suit actually seems to be a mashup of her original debut costume as well as some of the newer developments that have happened over the decades, as well as pink pants. Just feels kind of weird to see Poison Ivy wearing something that's not green. Then you have Harley, who actually rocked a couple different looks in this series, decides to don some cut-off overalls with combat boots and cut-up stockings that also have the diamond logos on them. Certainly feels like something Margot Robbie would wear. Now, what was supposed to be a simple snatch and grab job ends up only getting more complicated when the Sirens leave the nightclub, only to end up walking directly into a murder scene. Yes, that's right, Julie from the beginning of the comic. Not only has she been brutally stabbed, but her body has been arranged in some sort of weird ritualistic fashion. Black Canary shows up not long after, and as you might have guessed, the Sirens end up looking really, really guilty right now. Black Canary's suit is cool too. Again, it's not a huge departure from her mainline look, though they do seem to go a little bit bigger and more exaggerated with both the jacket and the bird logo on her chest. Obviously, Black Canary and the Sirens are at a little bit of an impasse right now. Dinah's mad that they stole the money, but ultimately does end up figuring that they had nothing to do with this murder. She also reluctantly decides to let the trio go as she stays behind with Julie to talk to the cops. Now, don't worry, the Sirens aren't being completely heartless in this situation. In fact, far from it. Later on, they hear a news report that pretty much entirely throws poor Julie under the bus, saying that she was a bottle girl who died outside the club she worked, and that because she was seeking psychiatric help, she almost certainly killed herself. This ends up striking a major nerve with the Sirens, and in a nice bit of characterization, we learn exactly why they're so invested in trying to solve this case. Catwoman says it's absolutely ridiculous to think that just because Julie worked for tips in a job where she had to also look pretty, she's somehow less human and less worthy of justice. Likewise, Harley is offended, both as a former psychiatrist and someone dealing with their own mental issues, that the police would be so callous in saying just because this girl had a psychiatrist, she must have been a danger to herself and others. So together, the Sirens opt to pool their special skills to try and uncover as many clues as they can. Poison Ivy, using her credentials at Gotham College, manages to sneak a peek at the body. Yes, she was most definitely the victim of an attack, Harley, using her eyes as a psychiatrist and skills with break and enter, goes over the girl's apartment and figures that no, she wasn't planning to hurt herself. And then lastly, there's Catwoman, who uses her very, very personal connection to Batman to pump him for information after a quick little makeout sesh, according to the Dark Knight, apparently. Julia was murdered on her birthday, which just so happened to be in July. Before that, in June, a woman named June was also murdered on her birthday. Right around the same time, D-list Batman foe, the Calendar Man, Julian Day, found himself released from Arkham Asylum. Normally, murder like this isn't part of the Calendar Man's MO. But as it stands right now, this is the best lead the Sirens have to go on. In an attempt to try and dig up more dirt, they think it probably a good idea to infiltrate the nightclub where Julia was working. And, you know, this way they also get a night out on the town, kill two birds with one stone. Of course, they're not the only ones who had the idea to investigate the club, as wouldn't you know it, Black Canary's band also just so happens to be performing that very same night. Turns out Dinah has actually been on this case the whole time. She knew there was more than one murder, and purposely set herself up for a long residency here so that she could hopefully unravel the mystery on her own. Now, the Sirens are here, though. They have their own evidence, and it's pretty clear that they will go a lot further if they can work together, putting their differences aside, though it's not just their differences they're going to have to put aside, as Green Arrow ends up almost blowing the entire operation by showing up and getting a little too lovey-dovey next to Dinah. It absolutely kills her to do it, but she figures the only way she's going to get justice for Julia is if she actually manages to get Ollie to go home, which is exactly what she does. As the biggest Green Arrow fan, I'm sure most of you out there know, you might think that I would be upset that they more or less shoo Ollie away, but honestly, you know what, as who was easily the worst dressed guy in this entire story, it's fine, you can leave, you know, dress better, then you can come back, but leave right now. Now together, Black Canary and the Sirens end up finding a matchbook for a strip club not too far by. This time, infiltrating is a little bit more difficult for the girls because they're the only ones here who aren't actually working. Well, that is, except for a mysterious, elegant older woman who seems to be directing traffic. She actually gets one of the girls to leave to go to a private booth with Calendar Man once he makes the scene. Our heroes figure this is the smoking gun they've been looking for. They leave, suit up, and are ready to come back to take it to Calendar Man once and for all. Though what actually taking it to him will mean actually ends up becoming a major bone of contention here. The Sirens sure aren't restricted by any no-kill rule, while Black Canary definitely is. Sadly, that's going to have to be a bridge they cross when they get to it, as by the time our quartet manages to get there, they're too late. The dancer has been murdered and Calendar Man is in the win. This time, though, they do manage to get a much closer look at the symbol under the victim. It's a circle cut into 12 segments, as in 12 months of the year. Or at least, that's what they think. As the comic comes to a close, though, it's made abundantly clear that this perhaps isn't the work of Calendar Man, as a mysterious individual flanked by more of those strange symbols watches them all from afar. And so there you have it, everyone. Two more very fun and extra-length comic books that you could be reading right now that hit the shelf only this week. As far as the Wonder Woman book goes, I had a lot of fun with it. The Absolute Wonder Woman series moves from strength to strength, and this annual is no different. I really appreciate the extra love and effort that was given into the theme of truth. This is something that Diana really cares about, just as much as she cares about justice. She wants to restore people, make them whole. It's what moves her from being just a hero to straight up being a superhero. Obviously, Wonder Woman in the main universe always represented the truth side of the Trinity, and I think it's super cool that that idea ends up really being the backbone of both this series and particularly this issue. It also just looks amazing. It looks great. Some of those double-page spreads there, like I said, absolutely eye-meltingly beautiful. We see the Greek pantheon rendered in a lot of different stories in a lot of different ways, but I love that this one has its own unique flavor and feel. It's just a damn good time from start to finish. I would actually give this one a 9 out of 10. This is a great book on its own, and I also think that you could give this issue to anyone who was maybe even just thinking about hopping into the Absolute Wonder Woman series, and I think they would have a really fun time with it. Then, of course, at the other end of things, we have Sirens Love Hurts issue number 1. Feels like it's been forever since I picked up a Black Label book, but this was kind of the perfect storm of circumstances that made me want to pick this one up. Of course, I'm a big Black Canary fan because I'm a big Green Arrow fan. I've always really enjoyed Teenie Howard's work, and I've always really tried to champion it, even though I have felt time and time again that some of her best series and some of her best stories always ended up being undercutted by some force outside her control. I am always coming back to her Arkham Tower series from Detective Comics, which was almost, you know, the perfect run, was almost easily going to make my top 10 of the year, and then, oh, the after effects of Fear State and everything else kind of came in and took the story away from her and felt like it hijacked the finale. Thankfully, though, because this is Black Label and because it is so self-contained, I don't think that's going to be the case. It's fun. Babtar absolutely kills it on art. It's funny. It's a little cheeky. It's a little sexy. It's a little brutal because it's Black Label. They can actually show some pretty bloody murder in this, and I think, you know, if you're the type of person for which all of those things I mentioned are what you want on your comic book plate, then I don't think you can go wrong with this series. Overall, I would give that one a very well-deserved 8 out of 10. So there you have it, everyone. 2 more really cool books we looked at the channel this week. I hope you had a lot of fun. Hope you read something great this week, and I hope we all get to do it again next time, everyone. So until then, bye-bye.